Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Northern Ag TV. Coulter Brown here, and we're attending the MSU Ag Economics Conference, joined here by Joel Schumacher from MSU. And Joel, you kind of provided an update on where Montana Ag sits here as we approach the end of 2025. Two very different stories depending on the commodity. I mean, we'll start on the cattle side. I think it's fair to say best year ever for producers from a market perspective.
Yeah, it's been a great year. If you got calves to bring to market, there's not too much to complain about. I mean, inputs are up a little bit, but kind of more than offset by the prices we've been seeing on the other side.
Well, in considering these markets, it's given guys opportunities. They've got profitability restored and can think about bringing back a next generation or expanding. A lot of options.
Yeah, when you do have a good year, and in fact this time we've had, I'd say, a couple good years in a row, it's a chance to reinvest in maybe some of that equipment, maybe pay down some debt, maybe change the operation a little bit. The one challenge for folks that sold down in the drought in 21, 22 in there, it's awful hard not to sell those heifer calves when you're getting prices like we're seeing today.
And how are we positioned from an inventory standpoint? We've seen a big pullback over the last several years, but what's it looking like now?
Well, last year, January 1st is one of the years we get an official count, and we bumped up 1% coming on January 1st, 2025 in Montana. U.S.-wide, we're still dropping. So I think we're seeing a little bit of indication on the national level that we're not sending quite as many heifers into the feedlots, which might be that we're going to grow a little bit, but I think U.S.-wide still going to be a pretty constrained supply. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of growth. Might even see a little bit of a contraction this year as well.
And as you look forward in this, I mean, like you say, the market is telling us to expand, but there's a lot of uncertainty from producers right now. As you look towards 26, what do you see in this market?
Well, there's a couple of things. We mentioned uncertainty. Certainly, we only got kind of half a farm bill in the budget bill, so there's some uncertainty there about policies and what that next farm bill is going to look like, or if we're going to see piecemeal or one-year extensions. We just don't know there. Obviously, trade policy has been kind of all over the board, so a lot of uncertainty there. But I think folks are, still we have the grass resource we have those forage resources we have, and I think a lot of folks, on a long term are looking at, what's the carrying capacity of my place, and then how do I get back to that level, and is now the right time maybe to get up to that level.
Well, let's shift over to the grain side of the equation, where I know it's not as rosy. Looking at an acreage standpoint, we've seen kind of just steady trends for the most part.
Yeah, the planted acres were pretty steady. We had a little more pulses this year than we've had in prior years, but, that's kind of a trend, too, that's been growing over the last 15 years, a little bit more. I think folks are looking for where they might have some profitability, and there weren't a lot of options this year that kind of penciled out. So I think coming into next year's planting season will be interesting to see if the wheat markets don't improve, are there some other crops, maybe some oilseeds, some lentils that folks are thinking might be profitable for them.
Sure. And on the market side, I mean, you don't have to tell farmers how tough this situation looks. And, production was okay, but boy, the markets didn't do us any favors.
Yeah, it's been, across the board kind of on the crop side. There hasn't been a lot of bright spots in the market. So I think, looking at storage, obviously we can store wheat for a number of years. So, is that a possibility? But obviously there's a carrying cost to doing that. So I think watching those inventory numbers might be kind of interesting this winter as we see our folks going to market, maybe accept the price now and not have that interest cost of carrying that and not selling it now, or are they just going to go to market, or do they think maybe in May, March, June it'll look a little better?
Mm-hmm. And it was kind of a double whammy for a lot of guys this year, where challenging production, but then a quality issue for a lot of grain, both wheat and barley.
Yeah, in general, it was a wetter year than the year prior, which most of the time we think of a good thing. We're a pretty dry state. Unfortunately, we had some harvest time rains, and that did affect some quality, specifically on some of that malt barley side. But what do? That's kind of the nature of agriculture. Things might look good until right at the end, and then we did get some moisture on that. So on the other side, maybe some of the cattle feeders are going to pick up some of that damaged crop and maybe be able to, make some dollars off it that way.
You mentioned the input costs on the cattle side. It's much the same story on the grain side, but not the prices to make up for it on the commodity. As these guys are looking forward to next year, what do? They're kind of betting on the come that things might get better, and they've done that before.
Yeah, managing input costs is one of the things you do have a little bit of control over. You can, affect your fertilizer rates. You can see what quality of seed you're going to put down. And, I think that's something people are looking at. What's it look like to have a low nitrogen year in terms of applying? If I'm going to reduce that input cost, maybe that's going to pencil out. So I think a lot of folks will look at what we've got available in terms of input costs that you might be able to reduce a little bit. And, the markets we're pretty much price takers. So that is something you have a little bit of control over, is on the input side.
Well, Joel, appreciate your insights, and thank you for hosting this event. A lot of great information from MSU.
All right. Thanks for coming.
For the Northern Ag Network, I'm Coulter Brown.